Okay, President Trump refusing to back down on extreme vetting as the Trump administration formally files an appeal against the ruling that blocked the president's latest travel order.
But our next guest is a lifelong Democrat and says the executive order should have been upheld in court in the first place.
Defense attorney and Harvard Law professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz joins us now to weigh in on this. Alan, great to see you this morning. Did these judges overstep their bounds?
I think they did. The idea of focusing so heavily on campaign rhetoric and essentially saying, look, if Obama had issued the very same order with the same words, it would be constitutional. But if Trump issues it, it's unconstitutional because he said some things about Muslims in the run-up to the campaign, and Rudy Giuliani said some things, and other people said some things. That's not the way the law is supposed to operate. And finally, the Trump Justice Department is getting smart. They're appealing this not to the Ninth Circuit, where they're likely to get an adverse ruling. They're appealing it to the Fourth Circuit. And the Fourth Circuit is a much more conservative court and much more likely to uphold the travel ban. And then, if the case goes to the Supreme Court and ties 4-4, Trump wins.
So, Professor, what you're saying is, in studying the Constitution, what candidate Trump said about, say, a so-called Muslim ban or whatever, that you're sort of psychoanalyzing him as a candidate and applying it to their constitutional theory. And is there precedent for that?
Well, I actually said that this wasn't constitutional analysis, it was psychoanalysis. There is precedent in extreme cases where legislators, in enacting a statute, say things. You can sometimes look to the legislative intent. But I've never heard of a case where the rhetoric of a candidate, ambiguous rhetoric to be sure, because I do not believe this is a Muslim ban. Focusing on a country like Iran, the greatest exporter of terrorism, not only no vetting, it sends terrorists out in order to kill Americans. Iran has so much blood on its hands of Americans and American allies. To exclude a country like Iran from the list would be absurd. And the list, although for a different purpose, was originally designed by President Obama. So how can you say that the inclusion of the 6 countries on the list was motivated by what Mr. Trump said when he was candidate Trump? That's just not good legal analysis. And here I'm putting my reputation on the line. I predict that if the case gets to the Supreme Court will uphold the major provisions of this ban.
All right. And, Professor, as Pete mentioned at the top, you're a lifelong Democrat. And in a very lengthy New York Times piece, Bernie Sanders was asked about the future of the Democratic Party and what the party stands for. His response: certainly there are some people in the Democratic Party who want to maintain the status quo. They would rather go down with the Titanic so long as they have first-class seats. I would ask you, what does the party stand for?
Well, it certainly doesn't stand for Sanders. Sanders, first of all, was never a Democrat. He was an independent and a socialist. He is not the mainstream of the Democratic Party. And if the Democratic Party moves left toward Sanders, toward Keith Ellison, it's doomed. It has to regain the support from middle Americans in the Rust Belt states, traditional Democrats. You want to call it the status quo? Fine. I call it the vibrant center. I want to return America to the center, where good conservatives and good liberals, centrists, can argue with each other and get the radicals, the extreme leftists like Sanders, marginalized, along with the extreme rightists like the alt-right. Let's bring the debate back to the center. Call that to the status quo. Hey, America is great with the status quo. The Democratic Party won often with the status quo. Let's not turn the Democratic Party into the British Labour Party, which is now dead in the water. The Democrats have to move to the center, not to the left.
Well, fellow Democrats would see otherwise. A Fox News poll revealed 61% either strongly or somewhat favor Bernie Sanders.
Professor,
good to see you.
Yeah. Thanks, Al. Great to see you.